Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome again to Whiskey Congress. We've got a remote show going. We got some feedback from some folks wondering why we weren't on our normal schedule, which I frankly found flattering. But Steve and I had ridiculous travel weekends and a lot going on. Steve, you want to talk about your weekend?
Yeah, man. You all settled in out there in your
in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Yes, I am.
Yeah. I will not be coming to visit you out there, by the way.
You want an idea about this town?
Yeah.
So I went to the grocery store today. I went to the Harris Teeter, and you know how you get those coupons on the back of your receipt? I've got 6 coupons, but I really got 2 because it was just 2 on each. So it's 2 coupons repeated 3 times on the back of my receipt. One is for tire alignment, and the other is for a jiu-jitsu studio.
Oh, well, see, there you go. You like jiu-jitsu.
I like jiu-jitsu, and my car is a little off balance, so maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
It could be perfect time for me.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess, starting in with the weekend. First of all, I am drinking a Lafroig 10, the 10-year. Nothing special. Before the show, you and I were talking about the logistics of doing the whiskey review with you being back on the road. So we'll get that straightened out. But for right now, I'm just drinking the Lafroig by myself. We're both a fan of it.
Right.
I won't score it right now. We'll wait until we we both get on the same page.
Okay.
With what we're drinking. But Lafroig has just got that classic, almost medicinal type taste. And I guess I've adjusted to it over time. So it's not quite as, I guess, initially repugnant, but it's still very strong, opens up the nostrils, and just kind of one of my favorite whiskeys. It's one of my favorite whiskeys to taunt people with, when you have a person who's not a whiskey drinker and, they're like, hey, what are you drinking? And you're like, here, take a whiff.
Right.
You don't warn them or anything like that, and it just punches them right in the face. I love it.
I'm with you. And then if they can't get by the smoke and the peat, I have one friend who claims it smells like a Band-Aid, and I'm like, yes, it does. Isn't it wonderful?
And it absolutely does. And it's amazing how over time, drinking these smoky, peaty whiskeys, you not only adapt to those flavors, but you begin to enjoy them and crave them.
I love them.
Yeah.
Well, you win this one because
yeah.
I'm drinking Black Box Shiraz. So,
okay.
Yes, I'm drinking box wine.
That's that.
Hotel living, baby.
So my weekend, there was the Arnold Sports Festival down in Columbus this weekend. It's a huge event. Thousands of people all kind of converge on the city of Columbus at the convention center and other places throughout the city. It's all health and fitness oriented. Arnold Schwarzenegger himself is there. I didn't run into him this time around. It seemed like he had just been to where I was going, or he was about to be where I was leaving. And I just had a lot going on this weekend.
I'm calling this, he was ducking you.
What's that?
He was ducking you.
Maybe he was. Maybe he was. I mean, we have run into each other in the past, and he was just telling me to get out of the way. But I thought it was a very memorable, hey, get out of the way. So, it was a huge weekend. I competed on Friday, and I didn't do it didn't go as planned. It wasn't a bad meet for me. My initial reaction was pretty frustrated, but I think I played it pretty level-headed. Looking back, I think I haven't even looked at the final results. I think I ended up taking second or third, but the meet ran so late. I got there at 1:00 in the afternoon on Friday. I didn't leave until after 11 o'clock that night. So I left before they even handed out the award. So I don't even know if I didn't even stay to find out where I finished. I just knew I didn't win, so it was just like, all right, punt on this. Um, I needed a shower, and I thought I was going to bed, but I ended up drinking a bottle of Macallan with my buddy down there. So there's that. And then the festival, I went to the festival on Saturday. Just did some recon work for some ideas that I have and that I'm working on, kind of on the side a little bit, and got to see some really cool stuff. So I took a lot of video. I'm gonna try my hand at editing it down, putting it to some music, and it may not be the greatest production of all time, but I will put it all together and put it out on our YouTube channel, and on our Facebook channel for people to check out. So, keep an eye out for that.
I was worried about you a little bit, actually. I texted you at around 4 thinking you'd have been done at about 3, and I don't think you had either just started. I think you had just started when I texted you. And
yeah, I think when, if I remember correctly,
you had done one
texted
lift.
me, and I think I had either just squatted or I was about to go squat, which, a powerlifting meet goes squat, bench, deadlift. 3 attempts at the squat, 3 attempts at the bench, 3 attempts at the deadlift. But you have flights. This meet had 3 flights, so everybody squatted in flight A, and then flight B, and then flight C, and then it cycled around to the bench. Everybody in flight A, B, and C, all benched, and then deadlift. All 3 flights, A, B, and C, participated in the deadlift. And then they have to tally all the weights and all that other stuff. The meet started off sketchy for me. I got my arm got caught in the safety straps on the way down. So I'm sitting there with 600 plus pounds on my back at a weird angle, and I had to ask them to take it off because on my left side I just couldn't go down because of the way I was kind of tangled in the straps, and it was kind of like a marionette there. So I asked them to take the weight, and that blew my first attempt. So now I have to, if you don't get it, if you miss all your attempts in the squat, then that boots you out of the meet. You can't get a total, so therefore you can't win. So I had to kind of readjust my game plan, and I overcame it and got through the meet and finished it, but it definitely did not go the way I wanted it to go.
A bad meet for you is still a freakish performance. I mean, you sent me the numbers. If you want to put them out there, that's cool. I know they didn't meet what you hoped for, but still, compared to even amongst elite powerlifters, you still did damn well. You won this last year, and I know you're frustrated, and I feel for you, but you've got nothing to be, I mean, I feel your frustration, I feel your disappointment, but you still did ridiculous numbers.
Well, I appreciate it. I do, and that's one of the things I did eventually come to grips with. That, and it took one of the other guys who lifted at the meet, to tell me, like, listen, I mean, you still put up numbers that a lot of guys would love to be able to put up. It's just like some of the, like the number I opened with on the deadlift. Most guys in the meet didn't even hit on their second and third attempts. So I can't get too upset about it. There were some variables in there this year that I wouldn't accept as excuses, but I mean, the reality is
you were shaking off injuries. I'll say it for you.
Yeah, well, so, but I mean, some of those things have changed. The variables have been adjusted. I spent a lot of time on Sunday, reworking my game plan from a training perspective on how to be better. So I'm going to spend the next 16 weeks just trying to rebuild my body, cut down a little fat, and just come back stronger. So
I have to tell you, when I called you at like 11 a.m. Sunday, you were still in Columbus, and you sounded like you had a truck sitting on your chest while we were speaking.
I was
a combination of
now
whiskey and
listen. Here's the deal. The thing is with Columbus, like, I treat the Arnold Expo like I'm at a conference for work. I try to approach it. If I'm competing, I approach that like a work trip. But I use the actual expo. I use it as opportunity to network and to meet people. Because there's certain things that I would like to do in the fitness industry. So there's, it's good to know these people. and then on top of that, it's exhausting. The Columbus Expo Center is massive. I mean, and you do a couple laps around that thing. If you've walked a couple miles. So not to mention, parking your car, having to walk and everything else. So
Not to mention
it's
you
just
nearly
an
got blown off
exhausting
the road
weekend.
on your way down there.
What's that?
Not to mention you nearly got blown off the road by the winds on your way down there.
Oh my God, that was nuts. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a crazy weekend. It was productive, had a lot of fun, Friday and Saturday night. My buddy and I got a little bit too aggressive, I think, with indulging in the spirits. And so, needless to say, there was a price to be paid the next day each time around. But all in all, it was a good time. So, and what's interesting this year at the expo, there was a lot of technology. I was curious to see kind of what the new trend would be, and it was very technology driven. I thought I was going to see more like cannabis related stuff as there's so many different cannabis laws that have shifted in different states. There wasn't as much. I only saw two cannabis vendors. One was for like cannabis infused spices that you like cook with,
All right.
and then the other was like this topical cream that you put on your back, kind of like a Bengay or an icy hot.
Like a CBD
That
oil, like anti-inflammatory?
Yeah, it had activated hemp in it for anti-inflammatory. Actually, I got some samples, so if you want to try one of the creams, I will make sure I get it to you when you get back in town. Because I had the guy actually, because I was there on Saturday after I competed, and my back was tight from the meet, and I said, well, just throw some on my back. I've been walking around, and he's like, oh, sure. So, he wiped me down because I was a sweaty beast, and then he rubbed it on my lower back, and then I actually dropped my pants in the middle of the fucking expo, so that he could get it on my knee because I couldn't get my sleeve, my pants leg above my calf. So I just dropped my pants right there in the middle of the expo. And
I
was
think
like,
I know why Arnold didn't want to talk to you now.
can you put some of that on my knee? He's like, yeah, sure. I don't know. He was kind of hyperactive fitness guy, so he didn't really give a shit. It was a good time though.
Okay, that's going to be a tough one to top. Um, all right, so yeah, my weekend was not quite that interesting. I didn't drop my pants in front of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I did drive to Charleston, West Virginia, hang out with a college buddy I hadn't seen probably in 10, 12 years. Had a great time doing that. Saw Charleston, West Virginia for the first time in a positive light. Actually, we had a great time. It was a lot of cool restaurants and bars in downtown Charleston, and we went to a place called Pies and Pints and had like a funky pizza and some craft beer, and he drove me around in his Tesla. It was the first time I've ever been in a Tesla, and holy shit, they're amazing.
Which Tesla was it?
I want to say it was the S. You know what? I should have texted him. So we were driving around.
What did it look like?
It looked like a fancy sedan, really fancy large sedan.
Oh yeah, that's a yes.
And it was
That's a badass car.
Oh my gosh, Steve. So we get in this thing. We're on these windy ass roads in his neighborhood in Charleston, and he's talking about it, and he says, and if you really punch it, and he nails it, and he literally pinned me to the seat.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And then he told me that that's not the sporty one. He had taken it to Columbus for some reason, and they let him like use the sportier one while his was in the shop, and he said you could tell the difference. And literally, I felt like I was about to. It literally pinned me to the seat.
I mean, Jim, what are you saying? Are you saying we should trade the trucks in and just go Tesla?
Go Tesla. No, I'm really not saying that, but I was absolutely blown away with both the technology of this thing and the power. I mean, its low end acceleration is just amazing.
Yeah,
So,
it's got crazy technology inside of it too.
and
Like
there's that.
I know the screen in there is massive.
The screen in there is bigger than the TV I grew up watching. Not quite, but close. And he put it in self-driving mode at one point. He offered me a chance to drive it, but I had like two more beers than him at that point, and I said I'm not driving a Tesla in a town I don't know on windy roads after having a couple extra beers. So I did not drive it, but thing was fucking amazing.
Jim with the responsible play of the year. Although I would have woke up the next morning and been like, "Give me the key fob.
Give me the key." You know, if I wasn't eager to get out here and get settled and whatever, I probably would have done that. But I mean, holy shit, that car is amazing. So Elon Musk, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I became a pretty big Elon Musk fan after I watched the thruster boosters land themselves after he sent a rocket to in the outer space, last month. That to me was just amazing. And and I know his story and I know all about it and all the companies he started, and he's the greatest entrepreneur ever and everything else. But I think with everything else, as cool as they were, like none of that, like, it's funny, I just used PayPal today, and that was a company that he was, I think, the CEO of. I just used it today, and you don't even realize how crazy it is when you really think about it. That you're able to just from your phone instantly send money to someone else, and it pops up in their account, and then it's crazy how it works. Now, people have a lot of complaints about PayPal, and fine, fair, but it's still a pretty amazing, app and advancement in technology. But all that being said, it's so commonplace now that you don't really process it.
Right.
But when I watch those boosters, I mean, for the last 30 years, every time you watch a rocket take off, those boosters fall off, and then you're like, well, I feel like that's a giant waste, right? I've always felt like that was a giant waste. Like, it's so stupid. Like, they fall off when they get to a certain point in the atmosphere, and then what do they just burn up? Do they land? Does that shit hit somebody?
I think they fall into the ocean. I think they fall into the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, like, so either way, so they're just clustering up it's so stupid. And now I'm not an engineer. You are, but you're not.
I'm not an aeronautical engineer, correct?
Right. So, I mean, obviously, that's not something that's easy to figure out, but they did, and it was just so cool to watch those things come back down to Earth and land like in unison. And there was another one. There was a third one that one actually did crash into the ocean, but still, it was pretty crazy to watch. So that's when my, I kind of just started to grow this weird boy crush on Elon Musk.
My boy crush on Elon Musk goes when I learned about the Hyperloop, basically a pneumatic tube that can shoot you from LA to San Francisco in 30 minutes for the cost of $25. Like, that is because he thought building a train was stupid. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is just, and he didn't even want to profit off that. He's like, I'm too busy. Here's a plan. Do it. And there's actually talk about building a Hyperloop that connects Chicago to Cleveland to Pittsburgh. Imagine what would happen if you get from Pittsburgh or Cleveland to Chicago in 30 minutes for $25.
Oh, I can tell you exactly what would happen.
Properties
people would die of alcohol poisoning.
There's
okay. Like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Chicago, 3 of the drunkest major cities in America. Child, please.
All right, all right. So we need to talk about a couple things. We first need to talk some Whiskey Congress business, because the Deadpool has been stagnant. You've had I've had John Kelly. You've had Rex Tillerson, right?
Yes.
And Tillerson looked like he was about to be the next one, which would put you up. I think you're currently up 3-1 in Deadpool betting.
Yeah.
Trump Deadpool betting.
So Tillerson was on the ropes, and I had some information that I thought was good on his whole financial situation, but it turns out it was not accurate, or it didn't matter, or he was punted on a crazy amount of money and whatever. So Rex Tillerson is still in. I was wrong. I eat that and own it.
Well, John Kelly's still
but
around too. Now he's been
John,
pushed to the edge.
John Kelly was pushed to the edge. It definitely looked. I mean, when that whole thing with the aide who was the staffer who was beating his wife,
Porter.
when that went down, I
Rob
thought
Porter,
you were
yeah.
actually gonna, kind of jump back in the game. But somehow Kelly survived it. And if someone in the Trump, if they don't get fired, like within 3 to 4 days of the rumors of them being fired, then they survive. But the reason why they survive is because something else happens where literally everyone, including everyone in the White House, just forgets about it.
Certainly feels that way. So
I
we have to make a team decision here. Does the Hope Hicks departure reset the Deadpool?
I have to say yes. Now, a lot of people don't know who Hope Hicks is. So we probably want to explain that, but you explain it. But I will. Okay. What I will say is, yes, her departure resets the Deadpool.
Okay, so Hope Hicks was the White House communications director, which is ironic because you barely ever heard her talk. She was rough. I think she's 28 years old. She was. Is it 28? You know, off the top? Okay.
She's. I mean,
young, very attractive.
She's younger
woman.
than me, and she's under 30. So yes.
And she was the communications director, but really flew under the radar. And Trump fawned over her because he bragged that he asked her how much political experience do you have, and when she said none, he said you're hired. And so I would love to push back on this because I think there's a way greater chance of John Kelly falling off that sooner than Rex Tillerson. But Sean Spicer reset the Deadpool. She's every bit as big a deal as Sean Spicer. So, Deadpool reset. I wish we had a coin to flip to see who gets to go first.
I'll let you go first.
I get to go first. All right. I'm torn between two. I know who I want it to be. I'm going to go back to one of my previous selections. I'm going to go to Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. Just because of the recent goings-on between Sessions and Trump. I might lose, but if I win, it will be one of the happier moments of my political life. So I'm going with Jeff Sessions.
All right. Well, okay. So explain to me why that's your pick.
It's my pick because he is being directly, aggressively insulted by Trump. He was called Mr. Magoo, which is kind of funny, but embarrassing that the president is doing that. Sessions is if Trump could push him out, he would. If you could fire him without repercussion, I believe he would. I think Sessions will cling on for dear life, possibly out of spite. But I also think there's a chance that something will push him to the point where he just says, enough, you deal with it. Now, I tweeted the other day that if Trump really wants to make a splash, he should, do an executive order to legalize cannabis, which will cause Jeff Sessions' head to explode and probably get him to quit. So maybe I'm trying for a two birds with one stone thing here. But
you know what's funny? So actually, yes, to cut you off. But
cut me off.
So Jeff Sessions gave an interview this week where he said he was utterly surprised by people's reaction to his opposition to marijuana. Like, he just couldn't believe the backlash he's received publicly from the public and even elected officials who support this madness of marijuana, also known as reefer madness. It's just amazing how out of touch he is. But this is why I think that I'm safe with you not catching me, because there's a reason why Jeff Sessions is still there, And I think my belief is that he's still there because he wants to be there, because no matter what Trump says or does, he's not overly impacted by it, right? Jeff Sessions has his own agenda, and Trump's agenda basically aligns with it, right? Trump's agenda is mostly appeasing to the, conservative, kind of middle American, white male. But plenty of women voted for him. But it's mostly the conservative. Women. I would even say evangelical. I just think that there's a base there. We know what the profile is, right? There's some outliers. There's plenty of outliers. There's plenty of people who could come in and say there's, 1% of black people, and there's, 5% of Latinos, and this percent and that percent of this group and that group. Okay, fine, whatever. But Jeff Sessions has an agenda that he wants to drive home, that he wants to push through. And Jeff Sessions knows there's no other. He's already been in the Senate. He knows he can never run for president. He would never win. And so he knows his best chance to implement the policies that he wants to see is in the seat that he's in right now. So you will have to drag him out kicking and screaming, and he will not let go of the Attorney General gavel unless you have to fucking pry it from his cold dead hand. He's not going anywhere on his own accord. And I think Trump has no problem talking a big game, but I don't think he'll fire Jeff Sessions.
I don't think he'll fire him either, but I do think there will be some. If there are skeletons in Jeff Sessions' closet, there will be the threat those skeletons will be thrown into the public eye.
I think we would have found them already, but fine, if we haven't and they come up, then, you win. To the victor go the spoils. But what I will say, though, is I don't think we'll find them. But if we do, chances are whatever the skeletons are going to be, it's going to have something to do with race and racism and everything else. And that is not going to be enough for Trump to get rid of.
He's proven he doesn't mind that.
Right. I mean, because he just like that, he doesn't care about. And this White House, the one thing that he and John Kelly know, whether John Kelly really truly agrees with the Trump agenda or not, John Kelly is smart enough to figure out that, okay, when something happens, we have a catastrophe, we have to manage it in the moment better, but we only have to do that for so long. We don't have to make any aggressive, rash, or bold decisions because we know it'll blow over. We know that something else is coming, whether we generate it or the media generates it or something actually generally happens.
Or word comes out that Trump fucked a different porn star.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Actually, I don't care about that. That to me is it's funny that I was listening to I think CNN on Sirius Satellite, and they were saying this should be a bigger story. I'm like, no, it shouldn't, dude.
But
who cares?
So we're on the same page there. It should be a bigger story, but why? Right? I mean, because mind you, I was when Clinton was going through his whole thing with Monica Lewinsky. I was 16, 17, 18 years old. That went on for 2-3 years, and even then, I'm thinking, why do we care? Right? Like, I mean, they built it around the fact that he lied when he was on the stand, so they wanted to impeach him over it. But really, they were building it around the fact that he took advantage. He blah, blah. And, Monica Lewinsky's like, did he really? I mean, I just kind of like sucking dicks. And he was a guy of power, so I did it.
Well,
who the fuck cares?
And in the case of Clinton, it was way bigger of a scandal because he at least put on the show of being a, not conservative, but a traditional family man, whatever. I mean, Trump's on his third marriage. You know who is really glad that Trump fucked Stormy Daniels is Melania. She's like, better her than me.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the one. And what's really crazy is, the conservative feminists, right? The ones who are, they're very pro women, but they're conservative. They're like, we support Trump, like a Kellyanne Conway, right? Where's Kellyanne Conway on this whole thing? Now, listen, again, I don't care. I really don't care that he had sex with Stormy Daniels. I think it's a non-story. I think it's the only reason they're trying to make it a story is because of the evangelical base and that whole play. But in reality, it's a non-story. Now there are some questions popping up with that whole thing with Stormy Daniels, because remember, his lawyer paid her off. And I saw today a quick, I saw a quick headline that the lawyer is pissed off that he wasn't reimbursed, and so he let that slip to the wrong person, and that could kind of be something, right? Because if somehow a connection can be made that the Trump campaign paid her off and didn't report the payoff as something political or something along those lines, then you could theoretically have some form of fraud. True. But I mean, that's I don't know. I think that's more work than it's worth, and I'm not sure what it gets you in the end.
And I think we're agreeing here, because I mean, I don't care,
because it's not enough to take him out of the White House. Right? So you just waste a bunch of money and time and energy on a non-story.
Agreed. All right, so I'm afraid you're about to use my former pick against me in the Deadpool. Am I right?
Oh, Jim. Wait. So
I went Jeff Sessions.
You went Jeff Sessions. I honestly think I think that the whole here's the weird thing. I think people being flipped out of the White House now, it's such a bizarre situation. I'm actually sticking with Rex Tillerson.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with him. And in my heart of hearts, I know this is a bad choice, because I've actually come to really like Rex Tillerson as the in the role that he's in. I like him. I like what he's doing. He's kind of like, he reminds you, like, it's like someone took John Wayne and said, all right, can you do some international, kind of peacekeeping, and can you be the babysitter for this, loose cannon we have in the White House? And he kind of annoyingly agrees to it. And then they say, all right, but we built you one out. And he said, well, I'm a cowboy, so there is no easy way out. I'll see it through to the end. That's kind of how I view Rex Tillerson. And I don't think that's wrong. But what my fear is, and where I think I could be right on this whole Deadpool thing, is if Trump continues to kind of fuck around with Russia and China, the tariffs, and all these things, and Rex Tillerson has to constantly go back and say, we're not going to slap you with tariffs, or, he's got to handle shit with Russia. Like, I don't know if we're being tough on Russia or if we're trying to work with Russia. I don't know what we're doing. If this kind of nonsense with Trump continues, and he really pushes the issue on tariffs and NAFTA and everything else, then I could see Rex saying, you know what? Not what I signed up for. I tried. I did everything I could.
That's an interesting point.
And he punts.
That's a very interesting point. And I'm
surprised
you're going there.
I don't think anymore now we have obvious choices. I think, early on, you saw a lot of misfits that were going to get chewed up and spit out, like Ranks Priebus and,
Bannon,
Scaramucci and and,
Spicer.
Bannon we didn't see initially, but I mean, it became, pretty clear pretty quick. And so, now I don't know, like, because, there's a lot of people that are getting booted but they're lower level people who, like I would have to seriously pull out the roster of who's even there and look and see like where's like, and Hope Hicks came out of nowhere, right? I mean, like she came out of nowhere, and she kind of jumped ship because of this whole Russia scandal subpoena investigation.
Right.
She didn't want to say anything, and she didn't know anything, and just kind of like, maybe this is too much, and she kind of jumped out. So I think there's
Maybe when you come from her
think,
background and you think, holy shit, I could get indicted in federal court.
I don't think there's a clear favorite, but I think going with Rex Tillerson, for every reason I think he'll stay, I think there's a distinct possibility that some of that mentality and thought process could be the reason he goes if Trump continues kind of down this path that he started in the last 7 to 10 days.
So here's why this whole reset of the Deadpool could become irrelevant, because Jared Kushner could reset it real soon. He is teetering.
Well, yeah, and he was such a low hang. Him and Ivanka were both kind of low hanging fruit. Also, I it's hard to. I don't even know what their roles are, so it's hard to kind of put them in there. I mean, everyone else has had a defined, distinct role, and Ivanka and Jared Kushner are both kind of, staffers, aides, something.
Advisors, whatever the fuck they're called.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have some role, but the question is, what is it? And, Jared's troubles as of late have definitely, I think, would lead anyone to say, I don't know how much longer he can withstand the barrage. I mean, I think he came in thinking that, his business acumen, and I think he and Trump both thought his business acumen and his business mind would be enough to overcome the hurdles of not having experience in politics. And I think it was the exact opposite. I think his lack of experience in politics exposed them a great deal, to the point where I think you're right. He will be, he may end up being the sacrificial lamb sooner than later.
I think in his case, it's a matter of believing his own bullshit, right? I think he thought he was smarter than the system, and the system chews up and spits out people who really don't know how to work it. And that doesn't necessarily make the system a good thing, but it is what it is, and you got to get through that. And if you don't have the understanding and the acumen and the experience, you're done. I mean, we'll see. I'm not a Jared hater. I'm certainly not a fan, but he's facing, allegations that he received $500 million in loans while the campaign was going on to help bail him out of failed real estate decisions. His father-in-law at one point in his life had overextended in his real estate ambitions and gone from, alleged billionaire to allegedly borderline broke. I'll be curious to see how this all plays out. So Jared could reset things for us. The Deadpool has been reset. I've switched to Jeff Sessions. You're doubling down on Rex Tillerson. We'll see how that goes. You want to lighten it up a bit?
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
All right. So we've had a couple things going on. How much of the Oscars did you watch, if any?
I watched as much as I could. Sorry about that, guys, with the noise. So I watched it, but I was so tired. I was kind of in and out. like I at some point in time.
That's
there
right.
were
That was
times
it.
where
Was
I
last
woke
night, wasn't it?
I woke up and things were happening, and then sometimes my TV was watching me, but I did have it on, and I saw. So I did see some of the key moments. Like I was able to see when Kobe Bryant won for the best animated short, which that to me is very interesting. And the reason why is some of the political air around the Oscars this year. Kobe uh, had that rape allegation in Colorado, and that was years ago. I mean, that was oh God. I mean, what?
Late 90s,
That was
mid 90s.
it was like the early 2000s, maybe 2002 or three.
All
So
right, all right, I'll buy that.
what's that?
So that maybe that makes more sense. It probably late 90s is probably too early, but yeah, I was a long
No, I
fucking
mean,
time ago.
I was in college. Actually, I actually remember where I was at. I was in Saratoga, New York, when the allegations came down. But that's a whole nother story. But so I mean, and it was a long time ago, right? Like, so we're talking, 15 or so years ago, and the story wasn't that he was the scary man in the corner and grabbed a girl, or he didn't drug her. It was, they had some form of a relationship, and then he took that relationship too far, which kind of goes to your point that we need to kind of distinguish some of these events, and we need to take them individually and look at them like, it's not all the same.
Like Louis
sort of,
C.K. and Harvey Weinstein are on the same
right.
kind of
No,
monster. Yes.
I mean, it still wasn't a good situation.
Agreed.
And we don't have all the facts, but we have, I think we can piece together enough to say, you had a situation there that it was questionable, and, if he did something she didn't want to do, then, he was in the wrong, period. It never ended up going to trial. I think there were motions that had happened, and eventually the girl ended up saying she wasn't going to testify, and the charges were dropped.
Right.
And now we have the Me Too movement and everything that's happened in Hollywood. It was interesting to kind of see the reaction. I thought the reaction, if you're just watching the Oscars and you take away the politics of it, Kobe's reaction was great, right? Like, you have a guy who's won, 4 or 5 championships. He's known as just being a hard ass on the court, whether it's practice or a game. He had that drive to, passion to win and to be as good, if not better, than Michael Jordan. And then you see a guy who, in a completely different arena, wins an Oscar, and it's just like, you're world renowned, you're massively rich, you've won, you've achieved at the highest levels in your arena, and then he wins this Oscar, and he's basically like a kid in a candy store, or a kid, who just got his first car, or whatever analogy you want to make. And there was something, it was nice to see, his joy, but then it's overshadowed, to me, by the fact that, there's that girl in Colorado who made that accusation against him, who, if she did enjoy watching the Oscars, that may have just ruined it for her. And it's a hard dynamic to deal with. I don't want to let it go. I don't want to give Kobe a pass because the charges were dropped, but none of us know what happened in that room, and we have to be careful in just that it's a really unhealthy situation no matter what happened in the room. And I can't shake it even all these years later. And then kind of watching him in that moment, as part of my brain says, wow, this is really cool. And another part of my brain says, oh boy, this is complicated.
Well, and he also gets the added political, saying he won't shut up and dribble was clearly a shot at Laura Ingraham, which I do
Yeah,
not.
it was, and I mean, that's a shot at her. She kind of, she deserves it.
Fuck her. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm not defending her at
you know,
all.
I mean, and I mean, she can tell Kobe whatever she wants. I mean, Kobe and LeBron, frankly, I mean, have plenty of accomplishments on and off the court to kind of tell her to just go fuck off. So, I mean, I hate to even bring that aspect into it. I mean, we did bring it up when she did it with LeBron, and I think maybe we gave her a little bit too much attention in doing so, because the reality is, we know what LeBron is, and Kobe is a bit more of an enigma, and that's by design on his part. But Laura Ingraham. I mean, come on. The people who listen to us have to wonder if they would even know who she was if we hadn't brought her up.
Well, I mean, she's on Fox News. She's
Yeah, but but the question, but if you're not watching Fox News, do you know who Laura Ingraham is? Who she is.
I do, because I used to listen to her radio show years ago.
I do, but it's just because of kind of, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I don't know, but
oddly, she becomes more prominent because of all the people that got kicked out of Fox News because of sexual inappropriate behaviors.
Exactly. I mean, O'Reilly and Roger Ailes and all these.
The list goes on.
Boland and all those other guys. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But going back to the Oscars, aside from that moment, when Jordan Peele won for Best Screenplay with Get Out, I mean, that was a crazy moment. He gave a very, a good speech that I think that everybody, no matter where your political leanings were, could kind of rally around and say, wow, I'm really happy for you. He was the first, Black American to be awarded Best Screenplay for the movie Get Out. It was also up for Best Picture, and it didn't win in the movie. And we'll talk about the movies that didn't win in a second. But it didn't win. But I mean, this was a historical win for him. I thought his speech, his acceptance speech, was great, and it was just a really good overall moment that kind of quieted some of the noise. I think some conservatives want to kind of grumble about race because they acknowledge that it's the first Black person to win that award or win the award in that category. And, if you're going to grumble about that, then obviously you've got issues. But I just thought that was a really cool moment. And we've both seen the movie. I thought, it's a good movie from beginning to end. It's weird. It's scary. And the fact that it's just like, oh my God, like you could actually see it happening. And but it's all in all enjoyable.
So I actually ended up turning on Get Out like 3 days ago. Just it was on, and I picked up a few things that I hadn't caught the details of. It absolutely, if it was going to win in any category, Best Screenplay was the right one, because there are so many twists might not be the right word, but like there was so much cleverness to the story, the way it was put together. Everything from, he gets, talking about the history of slavery and racism in America, and how tobacco gets him enslaved. He saves himself by pulling cotton out of the chair. And what I didn't catch until just the other day, I watched it again, and early in the movie, the father of his girlfriend, I guess there's spoiler alert time, but it's Oscars. If you haven't watched it by now, your problem. But early in the movie, the father talks about how they hit a deer driving into their rich suburban area, and he gives a series of comments about deer that are basically analogous to racist talk about immigrants or people in overpopulated poor people, basically. And the fact that the main character kills that guy using a deer taken off the wall, and the fact that that didn't click in my head until 3 days ago embarrassed me, but it also really impressed me with how well written that script was. So
it flowed together. There was, it was. I think for some people, I think there's the good thing about it is that if you just watched it on its face, I think it was a movie that you can enjoy even if you didn't pick up on all the subtleties.
I agree.
And
at first watching, it's creepy as fuck, right? I mean, they weaved an awkward. The first time I watched that overtook my ability to appreciate the subtle cleverness.
Yeah, and then at the same time, if you did get the cleverness and the subtlety and everything else, then that just makes the movie that much better. So that was a great moment at the Oscars, and there was some, Jimmy Kimmel, the host, he's a guy who he can be divisive in that, if you're a liberal, Democrat, progressive, what have you, then, you're going to want to hear everything that Jimmy Kimmel has to say. He's big on
healthcare,
free healthcare, and he's a big anti-gun proponent, and he's got a kid with special needs, that he's talked about in the past, and he's got plenty of money, but what about the other people that don't? And he tugs at the heartstrings, and that if for people with empathy, that he's someone that they will gravitate to. But there's a flip side to the coin, and there's a group of people who don't agree with him, who don't agree with the way he preaches at people, and he turns people off. And the ratings were very down this year for the Oscars.
Yes.
The lowest that they had been in, I think, the last 30 years, or the last 20 years, or something along those lines. And part of it is because of him. Part of it is because of
polarized society.
Yes, and just obviously the talk about sexual harassment, the Second Amendment stuff. I think that's where the Laura Ingraham thing is interesting, because I think there's a lot of people who may not necessarily agree with, Laura Ingraham and that statement she made to LeBron James. But with something like the Oscars, based on the number of people who didn't watch, compared to the people who have watched in the past, and compared to the fact, and you take into account that, you have a lot of people, who were pretty closely connected to Harvey Weinstein, who are claiming that they didn't know his whole situation. There's people who are seeing some hypocrisy, and, a lot of people covering their own ass, and, all that sort of stuff. And, there's the politics in it. I think they heard it. And the question is, do they do anything about it?
I watched The Five on Fox today, and they were so giddy about the low ratings of the Oscars that it was actually funny to watch how giddy they were at the Oscars not getting ratings. Because one of the things about the Second Amendment folks and the NRA and just the whole right-wing media is vilify Hollywood. Hollywood is the elites. Hollywood and they're not completely wrong, right? I mean, you hear about the swag bags that are given out at the Oscars, and it's ridiculous. Like, everyone who shows up gets a $75,000. That number could be off by $50,000 in either direction or more. But they Hollywood elites do live a lifestyle that people like us can only fantasize about. And then when they get out on their high horse about some liberal cause, it is really easy for you to say Meryl Streep, Jimmy Kimmel, fill in the name. And watching the Fox folks just, drooling over the demise of their ratings was funny to me from an observational perspective, but also a lot of what they're saying is factually correct.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's true. You can't deny that the ratings are down. You can't deny that people didn't want to watch because they didn't want to hear. They didn't want to get preached at for
Right.
4 hours. But part of it is that the Oscars always run long, and people are just like, listen, I'm not staying up until 12:15 to figure out what the best picture is.
Right.
And another problem that the Oscars has is that, frankly, they nominated 10 movies for Best Picture, and none of the movies made any money because nobody went to go see them. Right? This movie that won, The Shape of Water, I don't think it even made $50 million, which means that less than 6 million people went to go see this movie.
How many of the nominees did you see? I saw Get Out. That's all I saw.
I'm trying to think what was nominated.
3 Billboards Outside of Wherever, Missouri, which I will see. I'll watch all these movies when they show up on my TV. But
yeah, I mean, I think I only saw 3 of the movies.
Oh, well, you're 2 ahead of me.
Yeah, I mean, so, but I mean, and
you're married, so you have date nights.
Yeah. No, that's
or not. No. Sorry.
No, I think it's the.
If you just did a voodoo curse to make me choke on wine after saying that, you succeeded.
Yeah. It's the big problem that they have is these movies are not, like, they're very critically acclaimed, but there's no connection to the people that are paying and watching the movies. And so they have to figure out, like, the Academy put in the reason why, why there's 10 movies that are nominated now instead of the previous where it was just 5.
5, yeah.
You know why they do that?
I don't. If there's actual scientific,
they do it because of The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, the Batman movie, The Dark Knight, was highly critically acclaimed. It made crazy money. Everybody went to go see it. There were tons and tons of people who said that this was the best movie of the year. But the Academy held it out for, unknown.
Because it's
right?
it's a comic book movie, and they don't want to put that
right. Exactly, and they didn't. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. They didn't see it. They didn't view it as
artistic,
the type of film that should
right.
be nominated for Best Picture. And so after that, there was such pushback from just everyone that they said, okay, fine, we'll expand the field, we'll expand the pool of movies that you have to choose from. But the caveat is that in order to get in that pool, you need a certain percentage of people to say that this was the number 1 movie of the year. And so what you have is you still have that kind of elitism that it's almost like they go to and they look at the box office and they say, okay, these movies barely made any money. Let's start with these and work our way up. And then it's just like and then once they get to a certain point, they're like, all right, we've got 8 movies that made no money. But the last 2 will be the, kind of the last 2 in our pool will be the first 2 that made some money. So it doesn't look like we're just being complete elitist assholes over here, and we've satisfied the criteria, and look, we win. And that's something that the Academy has really got to work on. They've got to get movies in there that people have seen, that people care about. I mean, otherwise, viewership is just going to continue to go down. Because they released the list of the movies that are up for nomination, 2 weeks ahead of the actual event? So,
no, it's more than that. It's a while more than that.
Yeah, but either way, it's a lot. I think they do push it out, but I know the formal or
right.
Whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter. It comes out ahead of time So basically, you're telling people ahead of time, like, hey, this whole thing is going to be a celebration of nothing that you watched. So you can either watch it from now, between now and then. But since you didn't have any interest in it when it initially came out, you're probably not going to. So you still need to watch just because we're the Oscars. And, you need to watch us praise ourselves for, 3 hours of your night. And I think it rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
I think you're right, although I do wonder if it's kind of like the Masters golf tournament in the sense that even if the majority of America doesn't like fawn over them anymore, there's so damn much money that the people involved really don't care. I mean, the Masters, the Augusta National Golf Course got told like 10 years ago, if you don't have, women members, all your sponsors will pull out. And the Masters' response was, okay, pull out. We have so much money, we don't care. There has not been a commercial for that golf tournament for like a decade, maybe more. And I wonder if the Oscars is almost the same way. They're so self-congratulatory. They're all so fucking wealthy. They show up and they get handed a 6-figure swag bag. And they're like, okay, so middle America stopped watching.
The Masters is different though, because like it's not like the Masters. It'd be different if the Masters only invited golfers you never heard of, right? Like, I mean, generally they're like, Phil Mickelson is there.
I mean, that's the top 50 guys in the sport, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm just saying from a commercial standpoint, and I'm throwing that out there. There may be some similarity.
Yeah, I don't think there. I don't think. I mean, it's sports, and again, the Masters isn't an award ceremony. It's an actual.
It's a competition.
It's a sporting event where it's determined on the golf course.
True.
So people have a vested interest in watching. Not to mention, people bet very heavily on the Masters.
All right, that is true. That is true. But the only counterpoint I'm going to make to that is it is 4 days worth of a ton of television coverage that used to have however many millions of dollars commercials coming in, and now they get none, and they give zero fucks because they're so wealthy already that they just don't care. And I think the Oscars might have the same mentality. Like, they know Hollywood doesn't live or die based on the money brought in during the Oscars any more than Augusta National lives or dies based on the money coming in during the commercials for that tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yes, that is where they are similar. But I mean, I would say so if we're talking about getting the ratings back, in order to get the ratings back, they need to bring in movies for Best Picture that people have seen. Now, if they don't care, then obviously it doesn't matter, right? Like, they're just
that's all I'm going at, yeah.
The way they're doing it and continue to isolate themselves as these, supreme leftists, morally superior elitists, and that's fine, but you're going to alienate a lot of people, right? I mean,
yeah, we're completely in agreement there.
They
just don't know if they care.
And this is where, this is the problem that the progressive, Democratic, left, liberal, whatever, that they have is that, they talk about being so inclusive, but a lot of times it feels like they're actually being very exclusive.
Completely agree.
It's just, we've kind of talked about this with Mike Wood. We've talked, you and I have talked about this at length. It's, they're the party for everybody, except for if you don't agree exactly with what they're saying, then they're just like, all right, screw you, go away. We'll just close ranks, and it'll be just us. We're the only ones who are allowed in the clubhouse that is the political left group.
Yep. All right. So yeah, I think we are kind of on the same page there. All right, man. So there's two things I really want to talk about. I want to talk about the NFL Combine because it's going on right now, and Lamar Jackson, a player you and I have talked about for 2 years now, allegedly was asked to try out as a wide receiver. And I don't know if you saw, I put an article up on the Whiskey Congress sports page about that. Lamar Jackson, if you don't know who he is the was the quarterback for Louisville for the last 2 years, who put up just crazy numbers running and throwing. He's never played any position, as far as I know, through high school, but certainly not through college, other than quarterback. And Bill Polian, the former Bills, Colts, and Panthers general manager, said he should switch to wide receiver, which I know hits a nerve with a lot of people. I'm assuming you're among them. I won't put that in your mouth, but I will assume, because he's an athletic black quarterback and he played phenomenally well at that position, and to say he should change positions in the NFL, to me, ticks a nerve back into the 90s when black quarterbacks were heavily discriminated against. Now, I do have things to say about that, but I want to kind of lob that into your side of the court and hear what you have to say.
So you're pretty far off on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the racist slap in the face everybody's saying it is. He was asked, it came up, but it's not because, the scouts are saying, well, he's black and he can run, so he needs to be a receiver. It's actually just when you do the analysis of the player, when you look at his height, when you look at his build, what does he look like? He looks like a receiver, right? He looks closer to Martavius Bryant than he does Ben Roethlisberger. He looks more like, Antonio Brown, and I just am going with Steelers, obviously, because that's what I'm a fan of, than he does Joe Flacco. He doesn't look like Russell Westbrook. He doesn't look like Cam Newton. Like,
you meant Russell Wilson, I think is who you meant.
What's that?
I think you meant Russell Wilson.
What did I? Oh,
Westbrook.
Sorry. No, I mean, yeah, he doesn't look like Russell Wilson. He doesn't look like Cam Newton. Nobody asked
Michael Vick, which is who he gives the most comparisons to.
What's that?
Or he doesn't look like Michael Vick in terms of stoutness or whatever, which is the guy he's most closely compared to. Actually, Steve, we're on the same page here again. Damn it.
Let me finish. He doesn't look like those guys. He doesn't play like those guys. Right? I mean, the fact of the matter is, based on his size, based on the way that he's built, his frame is more suited for receiver. Right now, he's played relatively well at quarterback. His completion percentage has gone up over the last 3 seasons. And his completion percentage his senior year was around the same as Josh Allen, who played at Wyoming, who no one is asking him to change positions, but he's also not built like Josh Allen.
Josh Allen isn't athletic enough to play receiver.
What's that?
Josh Allen is not athletic enough to play receiver. He's not going to separate from guys.
Right. So, I mean, like, that's a big part of it. I mean, like, you can say it's because of race or whatever, but I mean, we're talking about like the guy, like when you just look at it, and if you could put him in pads, helmets, with a visor, with long sleeves and gloves, and you couldn't tell race, and then you ask that guy to play a game, you would probably say, well, let's look at this guy at receiver, because the fear, I mean, even the fear with Michael Vick, even the fear with Cam Newton, is with these guys running around, they're going to take hits. They're not going to last nearly as long. Cam Newton is kind of a different animal because he's so big, strong, and thick.
6'4", 260.
Russell Wilson is also, he's not as tall as Cam Newton,
but he's a thick guy.
He is very dense and thickly built. And so, there's just a concern about the kid's durability in the NFL with his kind of skinny frame. So I didn't see it as, the moral outrage that some people, were kind of claiming and stirring up. But I mean, I think that it was brought up, but at the same time, they're not forcing him into it either. They see the potential in him as a quarterback, and it's not something that's being forced on him. I mean, listen, this is a league that had Robert Griffin III. This is a league that had Michael Vick. This is a league that's had, plenty of black Colin Kaepernick, plenty of black quarterbacks who could run, who were given the opportunity to play quarterback. Now, Robert Griffin III ultimately got hurt, and that was kind of the end of his career. Colin Kaepernick, we have talked about him ad nauseum. Cam and Russell Wilson have both been able to avoid that devastating injury that has kept them out for an extended period of time. But let's kind of be honest about this. Tim Tebow was asked to switch positions. Eric Crouch out of Nebraska was asked to switch positions. There was a quarterback. He was actually out of Arkansas. He ended up he was a white guy who played, and he ended up playing a receiver for the Bengals. I can't think of the guy's name.
Matt Jones.
Oh yeah, Matt Jones. Sorry, you were breaking up there.
Okay.
And he ended up out of the league because of like drugs and alcohol problems and things like that. But I mean, sometimes guys get asked to switch. It's not. I mean, in this day and age, it's not about race. We see guys like Deshaun Watson, who was having a really spectacular year before he got hurt. The Browns have, Deshaun Kaiser. You see guys like Tyrod Taylor. This whole premise of, black quarterbacks not being able to play quarterback in the NFL. I think that rumor has been dispelled. But Lamar Jackson is such a freak athlete that, they're going to want to see, like, the NFL is all about what can you do for me? How can you maximize your ability for me? And so for a coach or, someone to say, I want to see him at receiver, it's not the end of the world, and I don't think it's fish.
Okay. I think you or either I misspoke or you misunderstood what I was saying, because I 100% agree with you. In my article I wrote, I basically said this is going to trigger a lot of people back to the 1990s when there was that stereotype. I was thinking back to Major Harris at WVU, who was in college at the same time as me. And if you don't know who Major Harris was, he was a phenomenally athletic quarterback with a crazy arm and super strong runner. And he did get discriminated against because of race in 1990. That has gone away. That has been dispelled to a large degree. I completely agree with everything you just said, especially when you throw in the Tim Tebow factor, because it was kind of the same thing. Like, here's a phenomenally successful college quarterback, and will his skills translate to the pros? On the other hand, I will say that if I'm Lamar Jackson, who is a projected first or possibly second round pick as a quarterback, there's nothing he's going to do to prove he can be a receiver that is going to improve his draft status. So if I'm him, and he says that no one has actually approached him. Bill Polian said that, he should consider switching, and maybe NFL teams will think about it. But he will get drafted in the first 2 rounds as a quarterback based on his resume. And if he has to go the role of a Terrell Pryor, and okay, you take your shot at quarterback, it doesn't work, you are so gifted that you might be able to make the switch, that's down the road. But at the combine, which is your audition for pick me in the draft and, give me my shot, he has nothing to gain by trying out as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it was something suggested by, some
Bill Polian.
I consider to be somewhat out of touch. He's a guy with a lot of experience, with a lot of success. But, I mean, there's a reason why Bill Polian is out of the league, right? I mean, for a couple of reasons.
True.
One, he's in his 70s. He's essentially retired. He's got a nice cushy analyst job at ESPN. And he, towards the end, he didn't have a lot of success. I think they may have won. I think he was with the Colts when they won that Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. But after that, there wasn't much. And the guys had a lot of success, but I mean, we see times change. We see the league pass guys by. I think Bill Polian is one of those guys. I think he does provide a great deal of insight, but in situations like that, he thinks with that old school thought of, I think there is some old school in him, but I think he's just looking at all right, well, I mean, you're fast and you're skinny, so you look more like a receiver. So let's try you at receiver. That's where I
Right.
would. That's where I would. That's what I would do. And you would say, well, God, I hope I don't get drafted by you because otherwise we're gonna have a problem. You know.
Okay. I mean, I'm not disappointed that we agree. I expected us to butt heads a bit there, and we didn't. Um, One more thing about the NFL draft that is just an amazing story is Shaquin Harris, the linebacker from UCF, um, is just blowing people away. And if you don't know his story, he is a linebacker from the University of Central Florida, and he had a hand amputated when he was like 5 years old or 4 years old. So this kid is making a name for himself, and I just want to wish him well. I mean, what an amazing story to have that challenge and overcome it and compete at that level is just an amazing story. And I just want people to keep an eye on it. We're certainly not the
Well,
first people to talk about it.
when he was 4 years old, his mom walked into the kitchen and he was trying to cut his fingers off with a knife because his hand was in such excruciating pain. Now, I didn't see exactly what the issue was that was causing the pain, but whatever it was, I guess it was resolved by amputation. So, it happened when he was between 4 and 5 years old. So the kid has, played his entire career with one arm,
No, one
no
hand.
hand and one,
He's got an arm. He's got an arm up to
essentially
the wrist.
one and a half arm. So, and football is a tough sport to play with one arm. But he became a really solid linebacker at the University of Central Florida. He's got amazing speed. He busted like 20 some odd reps with 225. Which your 40 time, the number of reps you do, all that is a part of the silly season in the NFL. Where we're talking about guys in shorts running indoors on turf against air, no defense, no nothing, and so it's none of this stuff really truly matters, right? I mean, it all looks good. It all helps to maybe give someone a little
Then how
more
do you
confidence.
explain Mike Mamula being in the Hall of Fame, Steve?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
No, I
gives
agree. I agree
it
with you.
gives
It was
these
a joke.
coaches, a sense of, all right, now I can go ahead and say this guy is the best player. Now, guys do come out of nowhere and they become combine warriors, right? Like
Mike Mamula is who I was
right,
just hitting on.
Mike Mamula. There was a guy out of Ohio State a few years ago. He was a DN, and I can't think of his name either.
He went to the Jets. I'm forgetting his name as well.
He went to the Jets, and I mean, he was another guy who had a crazy workout, 40-time bench. He looked like Adonis, and he played like Madonna. Like, I mean, it happens, but for the most part, like the draft, I mean, the combine really doesn't tell you anything about a guy. I mean,
Agreed.
when you're talking about how do you figure out if a guy can play football, you watch him play fucking football. You look at him play against good talent, and then you figure it out. Now, sometimes these guys, they play at smaller schools. They don't always play against the best talent. So you got to kind of take a risk on a guy. So maybe you don't take a guy who played at a Division I AA school or FCS school. Maybe you don't take him number one. But you have examples I mean, Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco. These guys played at smaller schools and have developed into very effective pros. So some of it is scouting and analysis and looking at the tape of them actually playing, and then some of it is just luck. Some of these guys are, once they get in the league, they have another burst of maturity. They figure things out. Their bodies mature a little bit more, and they become really good players. Some guys who think they have it all figured out realize that there's a lot more to life when you take away the constraints of the NCAA, and everything fucking falls apart. And for this guy, he's played his whole career with this one hand. So the biggest thing for him is to be able to continue to do what he's done his entire career, and that's adapt to a new level, knowing that he's behind the eight ball. You wish him the best of luck. I think that he can have some success in the league, even if it's just a special teams player. But I mean, we saw guys like Jim. I mean, Jim Abbott had one hand and he played fucking baseball.
It was a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, so if
He would
Jim
catch
had
the
one
ball,
hand,
and then it was amazing.
right. I mean, I think that it is a great story. I think that he wouldn't want anybody to feel sorry for him. He's got people rooting for him, and you wish him the best. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Completely agree. Do you want to talk about the teacher who got suspended?
Yeah, you know what? Maybe let's talk about getting together for another show. It's almost 11 o'clock. I got to be up and early to go to the gym and start the program, so I'm not a weak bastard anymore.
Yeah, you only bench 450, you pussy.
See, I don't want those numbers out there. I don't need that shit being spread amongst the masses. But no, let's shut it down. Let's try to get together later in the week, get another episode out. But we appreciate everyone for listening. Check us out at Whiskey Congress on Instagram, Twitter. You can check us out on Facebook. You can check out our website, whiskeycongress.com. Obviously, the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you're getting your podcast from, Podbean. And if you got a question, you got a dispute, you want to comment or something along those lines, then you can reach out to us on any of the platforms. We try to respond as quickly as possible. And Jim, anything else?
You email us, Jim or Steve at whiskeycongress.com. So email Jim at Whiskey Congress, Steve at Whiskey Congress. We will do whiskey reviews again soon. And good talking to you, brother.
All right, man.
Out. See ya.